Welcome to Life Stories, where sometimes the person you love most is the one who betrays you deepest. Imagine receiving a wedding invitation with your name carefully handwritten inviting you to the marriage of your fiancé, and your own sister. What do? Burn it? Cry? Run? Most people would never show up. But she did. And what happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. This is not a story about revenge. It's about dignity. About choosing grace when all you want is to scream. It's about betrayal, resilience, and the unexpected way healing sometimes begins exactly where your heart was shattered. If you've ever been hurt by someone who should have protected you, this story is for you. Let's take you back 6 months before that wedding day, to the moment everything began to fall apart. I never thought I'd RSVP to the wedding of the man who broke me and the sister who buried the knife deeper. But grief does strange things to your pride. It makes you walk into rooms you swore you'd never enter again just to prove you can survive the air. 6 months ago, I was Brooke Taylor, 29, successful, engaged, respected. Now, I'm still all of those things. But I'm also something else. Something sharper. Something that learned how to bleed quietly. Seattle in spring is supposed to feel like renewal. But standing on the balcony of my Belltown apartment, staring at the cream-colored envelope in my hand, all I could feel was the suffocation of past promises. The return address was embossed in gold. Sienna Taylor and Carter Blake. My sister and my ex-fiancé. I had imagined many versions of their wedding. Some involved me flipping a table at the reception. Others had me wearing black and delivering a toast so savage it'd go viral. But in all those fantasies, I never once imagined I'd actually attend. Yet here I was. Still clutching the invitation. Still trembling from the note inside. Brooke, I hope you can be happy for us. It would mean everything to have my sister with me on the most important day of my life. Love always, Sienna. Love always. I should have burned it. Instead, I called Jade. You're kidding, she said when I read the note aloud. I wish. There was silence on the line. Then the quiet rustle of something being poured. Well, Jade said with the weight of war generals, if you're going, we do it right. I want blood. I want silk. I want the kind of revenge that doesn't leave fingerprints. I didn't want revenge. Not really. I wanted dignity. Closure. But I also wanted to stop feeling like I had to hide every time I walked into a family gathering. I wanted to prove to myself more than anyone that I wasn't broken. Enter Miles Bennett. I met him in the kind of way screenwriters would call cliché but fate might call mercy. A spilled glass of champagne at a charity auction. His laugh was the first real sound that didn't feel like white noise in months. You just upgraded my suit with character, he joked, dabbing at the stain while I stammered apologies. He was tall, all angles and ease, with a voice like velvet sarcasm. An architect. Recently returned from Europe. Knew good wine. Listened when I spoke. 3 dates later, I told him the truth over tiramisu. My sister is marrying my ex-fiancé. I'm invited. I'm going. He didn't flinch. Didn't ask the usual questions. Take me with you, he said instead. I clean up well. I'm excellent with awkward family dynamics, and I happen to enjoy your company. Besides, making your ex squirm. Win-win. I studied him. You know this isn't just a date. This is walking into a battlefield. He smiled. Brooke, I've survived design boards in Milan. Your family drama can't be worse than Italian real estate. He had no idea. By the time the wedding weekend arrived, I had become something else. Not vengeful. Not healed. But composed. Controlled. Jade called it the glow-up offensive. New dress. New hair. New rules. I wasn't there to prove anything to Carter. I wasn't even there to humiliate Sienna. I was there to reclaim the narrative. My own. The wedding was held at a vineyard just outside the city, one of those places with fairy lights and manicured hedges that look like they charge you for breathing too loudly. The air smelled of lavender and curated happiness. At the welcome reception, Sienna was radiant. A magazine bride. Soft curls, designer heels, that carefully curated glow people mistake for joy. Carter stood beside her like a statue polished for display, handsome, hollow-eyed. And then they saw us. Miles in a charcoal suit, crimson pocket square matching my silk dress. His hand warm against my back, his smile easy. My mother blinked like someone had switched channels on her reality. My father stared at Miles with a mix of suspicion and relief. Sienna's smile faltered. "Brooke," she greeted, air kissing my cheek. "And this is Miles Bennett," he said, shaking her hand. "Boyfriend. Architect. +1 with purpose." Sienna's eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second. "Well. You certainly made an entrance." "Oh, we're just getting started," Jade would have whispered if she were there. But it wasn't until the rehearsal dinner that I noticed the cracks. Carter's fingers trembled slightly when pouring wine. Sienna snapped at the planner about the color of the centerpieces. Their laughter rang hollow, like people rehearsing a script they didn't quite believe in. Then came the toast. Sienna stood. Champagne glass raised. Her eyes locked on mine. "Some love stories take the scenic route," she began. "Sometimes we meet the wrong person before we find the right one. Sometimes we have to lose to truly win." There was a pause. Everyone waited. No one breathed. "Carter may have settled once," she said, voice light, gaze sharp, "but I'm the one he chose forever." Gasps. A few nervous laughs. I felt my spine straighten, every nerve sparking. Miles stood beside me. "May I?" he asked, lifting his glass. Carter's face blanched. Sienna's smile froze. Miles spoke. Calm. Clear. With a steadiness that made the room lean in. "I don't know most of you. But I do know Brooke. And what I've learned in our time together is this: she doesn't settle. She doesn't chatter. She doesn't need anyone's approval to shine. So when you talk about choices," he turned to face Sienna, "just know this: sometimes the person you think you won has already moved on to better." He clinked his glass. "To real love. To knowing your worth. And to never needing to prove it." The room erupted. Laughter, applause, raised glasses. But Sienna? She didn't blink. She simply stared at me like she had just realized something far more dangerous than losing Carter. She had lost the power to define me. Have you ever had someone twist the truth to feel victorious? What would you do if your deepest betrayal showed up wearing white and smiling? Because in that moment, I knew this wedding wasn't an ending. It was the spark that would burn everything false to the ground. And in part 2, you'll see what rose from the ashes. The morning of the wedding broke in soft gold and mist, the kind of light that fools you into thinking everything is pure. The vineyard buzzed with hushed excitement and final preparations. White folding chairs stood in perfect rows like silent witnesses. Flower petals dusted the path where a promise was about to be made. And somewhere inside the bridal suite, my sister was slipping into a dress sewn from betrayal. Miles knocked gently on my hotel door just after 11 a.m., holding 2 coffees and a look that made me feel less like a pawn and more like a person again. His pocket square matched the deep red of my dress. His eyes held no doubt. "You sure about this?" he asked. "I'm not sure about anything," I admitted. But I'm still going. He offered me the coffee. Then let's walk in like we own the place. We arrived just as the string quartet began to play. Guests turned as we entered, the hush falling like a curtain. I saw Carter near the altar, his posture straight, his jaw clenched. He looked like a man trying not to think about anything too deeply. And then came Sienna. On our father's arm, radiant in lace and nerve. She smiled like a woman who believed she'd won something. But as she walked down the aisle, I noticed the flicker in Carter's eyes. Not joy. Not love. Something closer to regret. The ceremony itself was short, traditional, almost clinical. The vows were exchanged, rings slipped on fingers, and when they were declared husband and wife, I clapped along with everyone else. But my hands felt like strangers to me. It wasn't until the reception that everything began to unravel. The ballroom shimmered with excess. Crystal chandeliers, candlelight, centerpieces that cost more than my rent. The kind of perfection that screams overcompensation. Miles and I were seated with my parents and Carter's, all smiles and champagne. But beneath the surface, I felt it. The slow, creeping unraveling. The speeches came. The maid of honor gave a teary toast about fairy tales. The best man joked about college pranks and commitment issues. Laughter. Applause. Clinking glasses. Then Sienna stood. Again. No one expected a second speech. Not even Carter. I just want to say something, she began, her voice slightly slurred, her expression a bit too bright. To my husband. To my sister. She paused, swaying slightly. Some people think love is simple. But real love? Real love is messy. It's complicated. And sometimes it starts in the wrong place. The room stiffened. But you fight for it. You fight to be seen. To be chosen. Especially when you've spent your whole life in someone else's shadow. Her eyes locked on mine. This is my moment. And I won't let anyone take it from me again. There was no applause. Just the soft scrape of a fork against porcelain. I stood. I didn't plan to. But I couldn't sit there and let her rewrite history while I disappeared from it. I raised my glass, voice steady. To Sienna and Carter. May you always find what you're looking for even if you have to steal it. Gasps. A few murmurs. Then laughter. Nervous. Surprised. Sienna's expression cracked, but she didn't speak. Carter looked at me, really looked, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Not anger. Not guilt. But fear. And then I saw why. Across the room, a woman had entered the ballroom. Tall. Blonde. Elegant. She wasn't part of the guest list. But Carter saw her and paled. Sienna followed his gaze. Her smile fell entirely. Miles leaned toward me, whispering, "Who is that?" "I don't know," I whispered back. "But I think she's here for him." Carter excused himself from the head table. Too quickly. His movements lacked the usual controlled confidence. The mystery woman met him halfway to the door. They exchanged sharp words. Heated. Intimate. Sienna stood frozen, wineglass trembling in her hand. Then it clicked. That wasn't a stranger. That was Carter's ex. The one he'd sworn he'd stopped talking to. The one whose name I'd once found on his phone. The one he'd insisted was just a friend. The past was crashing into the present. But this time, it wasn't mine. It was Sienna's. I watched her face collapse in real time. All her triumph. Her smugness. Her illusion of control. It melted into raw, stunned disbelief. And for the first time in this entire twisted saga, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. Free from needing her apology. Free from craving his validation. Free from the narrative they tried to write me out of. Miles took my hand under the table. His thumb brushed my knuckles, grounding me. I didn't think I needed to come here for closure, I whispered. But maybe I did. You came here to say goodbye, he said gently. Even if you didn't know it yet. I turned to him, meeting his eyes. And to say hello to something better. Because maybe closure wasn't an event. Maybe it was a moment. A quiet one. When you look at the people who broke you and realize they no longer have that power. Have you ever watched someone unravel under the weight of the choices they made? What would you do if your greatest pain suddenly lost its grip on your heart? Because as the truth unraveled on someone else's wedding night, I finally understood sometimes, the real twist is who you become once the story you were trapped in ends. And in part 3, you'll see what I chose to begin instead. Carter never returned to the reception. No announcement, no apology, just the soft click of the side doors closing behind him and the woman in black silk who followed. Sienna stood alone beneath the chandelier, her wedding gown clinging to her like the last lie she'd told herself. Her fingers twitched at her side, still holding the now lukewarm champagne. Her eyes were blank. Guests whispered, unsure whether to pretend nothing had happened or start gathering their things. The DJ hesitated, his hand hovering above the playlist, waiting for some invisible cue to bring the evening back to life. But it wasn't coming. Miles turned to me. Want to leave? I hesitated. Not yet. I didn't want to gloat. I didn't want to dance on ruins. I just needed to stand there for one more minute to breathe in the truth that the story didn't end the way they'd planned. Not because I ruined it. Because the foundation was never real to begin with. As we stepped outside into the vineyard's cool night air, I looked up at the sky. The stars were out. Untouched. Unbothered. So many nights I had stared at them from my apartment, wondering if justice would ever come. If peace would ever be mine again. And there it was. Not in the form I expected. Not with rage or revenge. But with clarity. Are you okay? Miles asked as we walked toward the parking lot. I nodded. It's not the ending I thought I wanted. But I think it's the one I needed. He smiled. Closure's tricky like that. We drove in silence for a while, the city lights growing larger in the windshield. There was no music. Just the soft hum of the tires and the echo of everything unsaid. At a red light, I turned to him. Why did you really agree to come with me? He glanced at me, surprised by the sudden question. Because I liked you. Because I still do. No part of you thought I was just using you. Maybe, he admitted. But I saw something in your eyes that night at the auction. Something familiar. You weren't just angry. You were hurt. You wanted someone to see that. I exhaled slowly. You did. He reached over, took my hand. Still do. A few days later, I visited my childhood home alone. My mother greeted me at the door with hesitant warmth, unsure how to behave around a daughter who had finally stopped pretending to be okay. I wasn't sure if you'd come, she said, ushering me in. I wasn't sure either. My father met me in the kitchen, eyes tired but kind. Sienna hasn't left her room, he said quietly. She hasn't eaten much since the wedding. I said nothing. What was there to say? I don't expect you to fix anything, he continued. But I thought maybe she needs to hear your voice. Even if it's just once. I found her sitting on the edge of her childhood bed. Her veil was folded neatly beside her, like a memory she couldn't put away. She looked up as I entered. I thought it was you at first, she said hoarsely. When he left. I thought somehow, you'd pulled the string. I didn't, I said simply. I know. I know that now. There was a silence that sat heavy between us. Years of unspoken jealousy. Quiet wounds. Sibling love twisted by the comparison game we never agreed to play. I'm sorry, she whispered. Not just for him. For everything. I swallowed the lump in my throat. It wasn't about him, was it? She shook her head. It was never about him. I nodded. I'm not sure we'll ever be who we were. But I hope one day we can be something honest. She didn't speak. But her tears said enough. Weeks passed. Then months. Miles and I kept seeing each other slowly, without urgency. Sunday farmers markets. Late night movies. Long walks through Capitol Hill, hands brushing, sometimes holding. It wasn't fireworks or sweeping declarations. It was real. It was steady. Then one quiet evening, in his kitchen, while we were cooking pasta with mismatched utensils and laughing over a half-burnt garlic bread, he turned to me. No one else makes me feel like this, he said softly. Like I can just exist. Like I don't have to perform. I looked at him, heart full. I spent so long thinking love was supposed to be dramatic. Painful, even. But this ease, it's what I never knew I needed. He smiled, touched a strand of hair falling into my eyes. So what do we call this? We call it ours, I said. I didn't need a ring. I didn't need a title. I needed truth. And I had it, finally. But there was one last surprise. One morning, as I sipped coffee by the window of my apartment, Miles still asleep, sunlight pouring across the hardwood floor, I received a letter. From Sienna. It was short. Honest. Brooke. I started seeing a therapist. You were right, I needed to face myself. Not just what I did to you, but what I let life turn me into. You don't owe me anything. But thank you for showing up at my wedding. That pain opened a door I'd kept shut for years. Whatever comes next, I'm trying to be better. For myself. For the first time, I think I finally understand what love is. And it's not what I had with him. Love. Sienna. I folded the letter gently. No dramatic music swelled. No applause followed. But inside, something small and strong settled. Peace. Not perfect peace. But enough. And in this strange, winding journey from betrayal to quiet redemption, I had become someone new. Not bitter. Not broken. But whole. What did this story make you feel? Did any part of it remind you of a chapter in your own life? If you loved this story, comment 100 below. Tell us what country you're watching from. We love hearing from our global family. And if this story touched you, share it with a friend who might need it today. Thank you for being here with Life Stories.